I read something on a post the other day about it was someone ranting on why do we have to count how much protein we're eating and start weightlifting when we're in our 40s and 50s. And it feels like there is some wellness shaming that happens when we're in perimenopause and in midlife. And this person was just ranting and complaining about that and saying, it just doesn't feel fair. Doesn't feel fair, on top of everything else that goes on in our lives, that now we got to worry about this too. And so today I wanted to talk about why the exhaustion is real. It's real for all of us at this stage. And how to push back. Yeah. What do you need to do when you're feeling all of that pressure to let's fix this, right? Here's the recipe. And if you do it right, then you'll be fine.
Welcome. You're listening to The Centered Midlife, a podcast that teaches women in midlife to unapologetically stop silencing their dreams and start designing the lives they want to live in. I'm your host, Dr. Natalie, and as a clinical psychologist of the last 2 decades and a twice-divorced single mother myself, I not only know how hard it can feel heading into midlife, I am living it right here with you. I have taken all the many failed attempts and lessons learned in my own life and combine it with my extensive clinical experience to give you the tools you need to make midlife the best time in your life. No joke. So let's get started.
Welcome back, everybody, to A Centered Midlife. And today it's going to be short. It's going to be sweet. I just wanted to talk about this post and what it brought up for me. I think a few of you know that I've been through some of my own perimenopausal and medical issues in my midlife. I've posted about that before. And I think it was last November, maybe October, I had done a post just after having a medical appointment at a weight loss clinic, of all things, because that is what my doctors have sent me to fix the medical issues that I have. And if you're not on YouTube, you don't see that I'm using air quotes when I say fix. And it was probably one of the most viral posts that I had. It was right after, and I just in my car kind of vented about it. And so that's, when I read this Reddit post, I was like, this feels vaguely familiar, it's demoralizing and exhausting, right? It's just exhausting, the amount of things that we're being asked to do to fix things. And I want to talk about this, but I also want to talk about what my suggestion as a psychologist is for women in midlife to be doing when they're feeling this level of exhaustion with what's coming at you to fix, air quotes, your life. So, because I think it's coming at us not just medically, like this person was complaining about how many grams of protein and blah, blah, blah. That was more on a physical line, but I think that this comes at us in different ways. I want to start with biologically, we are in a chaos of hormones, right? Not unlike we were between ages of 10 and 15, depending on when we had our first menses, the year building up to that. And then the years after that, as our body kind of settled in, there isn't kind of an up down, here's when estrogen is high and progesterone is low, and here's where they meet, and here's where progesterone is high and estrogen is low. But they all kind of, if you looked at it in waveform, looked about the same. When we first start to get our hormones, that looks chaotic. And of course, when we start to sunset with those hormones, it looks chaotic. And the amount of emotional change that happens during that is unfreaking believable. So I don't think that I can say it enough. Your estrogen goes down, and there are so many neurotransmitters that go down with her. And so your body is learning how to create that, but create it in different ways. And it never gets back to the level that it was while you were menstruating. And it totally makes sense. Because women who are menstruating, why are we menstruating? We're menstruating because we're in fertile years. And so we're supposed to be kind of drugged on feel good hormones so that when we're raising the children, we don't want to eat our young. Like there are probably some insects out there that do that. I don't know about the animal kingdom, but like for real, we are supposed to be flooded with those feel good chemicals so that the burden of childbirth and rearing doesn't feel awful. And the associated burden of taking care of many children or a family, which probably also includes partners, right? So I'm not even like, I'm not just talking about the nuclear family kind of setup. I'm just talking about biology. None of the cultural and religious norms that you layer on top of that, just the biology alone. It makes sense that when we're menstruating, that's what's happening. And as that sun sets, that's what we lose, right? And so here's the rub. The rub is that for us as women, there was all sorts of acculturation, in our roles that assumes we stay that way forever, and we don't. So in perimenopause, in midlife, as these hormones start to change, the social role also has to change with that because we can't keep up. We can't just people please the way that we did or at the level that we did. It physically tires us, like legitimately, it physically just takes us out. But the problem is that there's the rub of the fact that our habits are wrapped around having that much hormone. So we kind of are like in this really interesting, let's say, phase of needing to learn new habits. And if anything about habit formation, you know that it's hard. Like that's the reality. If you want to start a new exercise habit, man, you could really lay into it for 2 weeks and be doing really good. You miss it 2 days and it's gone, right? Like that's the reality of how habits form in our brain, neurologically, create a pathway that's super, just a freeway. And our brain wants to go to that over and over. It takes time. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetitions. And here we are having to unlearn these people pleasing type habits and then create ones that are going to wrap around the life that we're kind of sunsetting. Doesn't feel right. It feels like another phase, like the third phase of our life. There's like childhood, and then there's adulthood while you're menstruating, and then there is adulthood afterwards. So as we come into this third phase and we're trying to figure these things out, we also have a habit of looking outside, not inside, for that information. Does this sound familiar to you? So we want to read it on Reddit. We want to hear other people's opinions. We want to talk to our friends and family about it. We want to go to the doctor. We want to see the science. If you're somebody like me, we want to read about, what's the best way to do this. But that's also a cultural habit that is a dangerous one for women in midlife. And here is why. Not one of us are the same. Not one of us on earth, period, end of sentence. Like I said that in my last podcast as well. Like one of the most amazing things is that, wow, like there's 8 billion ways to do this. And there's also, been billions of us before and will be billions of us after. And there's never one human that's exactly like any other human, which is a really fascinating thing to think about, right? Well, there is no way to sunset your hormones and go into your third phase of adulthood for a woman the same as any other. So if we're looking for information outside of us to tell us what's right, we get into this place where we're at war internally because it's not lining up with what our body is saying is working, not working. So I want you to really be practicing the habit of introspection, which is just looking on the inside and saying, how does my body feel when I say that's what I want to do? When I have this thought about what I want to do next, how's my body feel about that? Right? Like, how do I know this feels right or doesn't feel right? And we really should want to come to a place where it feels peaceful is the best word I could say. It doesn't mean it strikes joy in us. It doesn't, also mean that it doesn't have any fear associated with it, because new things sometimes can make us fearful, right? That's kind of the growth edge is telling us you're doing a thing you haven't done before. But in general, it should kind of settle into this place where it's like, yeah, that feels right for me. Right. I'm reading this Reddit post and I'm thinking to myself, first of all, honey, you're right. You're exhausted, and this is exhausting, right? And I also was thinking to myself, and let's call some BS on wellness culture that wants to make money. If you don't know this, like 80% of the domestic product that the money that's flowing in America is being spent by women in this age group. Because we are the people that control the households, we tend to also be the ones that are navigating, on on the stock exchange, what's getting bought and what's not getting bought, right? I'm not saying that we're the only people spending money. That's not true, but we are spending the majority of the kind of money that gets spent every month, month in, month out, that makes households survive, makes households work, I guess. We are who they want on this. They want to see you on that. I just held up my phone. They want to get our eyeballs on things because if they can convince us that we need something, then we spend that money and there's droves of us spending that money. So I want to call BS on wellness culture that is taking this opportunity to see some of us that are looking outside for this information on what to do for our bodies because our bodies are changing. We're getting fatter because estrogen goes down, and there are way more experts out there to tell you why that happens than me. But all you need to know is that the general thing is when the estrogen goes down, all the ways in which our body stayed in a thinner state goes away as well. So our body is adjusting to that, and we want to go fix that. We lose collagen, so we have the jowls and we have the wrinkles and the saggier skin, and that doesn't go with beauty culture, right? Which I have totally. That beauty complex is absolute patriarchy and needs to be called out as bullshit. But the BS on the wellness culture is that they're coming in and they're using this as an opportunity to sell product. Okay. And I'm not saying that you don't need more protein and that it isn't great to do strength training because muscle has, in the science, been tied to longevity. So if you want to be around for a while, you do need to build muscle, which also just makes sense, right? So we start to lose more muscle when the estrogen stores go down. And because of that, let's think about I live in Minnesota. I go outside and walk and I fall and I'm in my 20s. My ability to handle that and protect my joints and my bones, great. When I'm in my 50s, not great because I have less, bone mass, I have less muscle mass, and I have a longer recovery time. And so, for all sorts of reasons, my mobility is threatened in this kind of icy environment if I'm not doing the things physically that I need to. So, don't hear that like I'm calling BS on all of it, don't do any of it, but I'm calling BS on the way that they're stressing us out with this, on the way that you can't just look through TikTok and not see a dozen posts about how you better do this. So if you're feeling tired, you should be feeling tired. Like it makes sense. Relentlessly being beaten. And there's some shaming around that because marketing does that, right? Like, oh, you could be better if you did this. So they want us to buy product or they want us to do something that, involves paying, putting money out there. Like, come on. We're not machines. And adding more things to our to-do list, you've heard me talk about this. That's a nightmare. That is a bad idea, a real bad idea, because that's part of an old habit that no longer works for us to just have this, I'm a human doer. And if I hustle enough, I will be able to have the great life. And they're kind of capitalizing on that by pushing us to let's count protein, let's make sure we're weightlifting, let's make sure, all of those things. So I read the Reddit post and I was thinking I want to just be able to sit across the couch from this woman and say, yeah, you're exhausted. By the way, there's a reason for that. They're kind of monopolizing on that. And so what my suggestion as a psychologist is, we need to listen to our intuition. And for those of us that have really suppressed that for years, being in the survival mode of culture and hustling for our worthiness at whatever level you were at with that, no shame at all. We were all there in some capacity, but for some of us, we were at a fever pitch with it. And so if I ask you straight up, what do you want? You don't have an answer. And I don't want you to feel any shame about that. I want you to just understand culture did that to us. We don't know what the answer is. And if I say intuition, I think you've probably spent more time denying what your body tells you is true than you have checking in with it. So that will feel weird and different and not normal to do, but it is the right thing to do at this point in your life. And as we build our self worth from the inside out in Centered Midlife here on the podcast, I really want you to understand how important it is to keep checking in, to keep honoring that. And here's a big permission slip from Dr. Natalie. It's okay to mess it up. And this is what I mean by that. It's okay to check in with yourself and see, oh, I feel some peace about this. So maybe this is the way to go. This amount of protein isn't 90 grams like they told me, but this feels right. I don't have to count it. I don't have to pay attention to it. Basically this kind of breakfast, this kind of lunch, this kind of dinner, these kind of snacks. And I most of the time am averaging out. Okay, great. I don't need all of their special stuff to make sure that I get extra because I feel good. It makes me feel at peace. And then you get some more information that tells you maybe that's not the case. It's okay to have messed that up. Like, give yourself some grace. Just be compassionate and say, okay, I'm just learning. I'm learning her, this body person. Like, she's been carrying me around these last years, but I've been beating her up the whole time. I've been telling her she's not good enough. I've been dieting on her. I've been pushing her to do things that she shouldn't have done. I've been not letting her have much sleep and telling her that she needed to get all these things done. Like, this body has taken some hits over the years for sure. And I just want you to know, like, hey, it's okay to not be in touch with her. We know this. We know that your body and you probably are on different planes. And so you're going to reorient yourself and use that as internal wisdom, internal intuition about what is working and not working in these changes that you're making in your midlife right now. And it's okay that you don't have compassion if you don't have any prior relationship with checking in with your body. But I promise you that as you start to build that skill, you will realize there's some major freedom in that. There is great information out in the world that we can sift through and decide, let me try this, try that. But we don't have to believe the experts over this expertise. Our body has the most expert wisdom about what is right for us over any outside experts. Outside experts, and you're not, going to hear this very often, but outside experts are really only giving about 2/3 of us good information because the science on a normative curve, right? The majority, the average, and 2 standard deviations away from that, which means like 2, average classes away from that average for us, that's about 68% of people at any given time, right? A little bit less than 2/3. So you think about that and you think about, so it's delivering like 2/3 of us will be kind of taken care of by this, right? Let me give you a comparative idea about how the normative curve works. Education and how we develop at, elementary and middle schools and high schools, all of that educational system hits about 2/3 of children. The rest of them probably need an IEP. I don't think 1/3 of the kids in school have an IEP. So the really smart ones kind of get left to their own devices because they're smart enough that they're ahead of the curve. They're not behind the curve, and they get lost in that system in some ways unless they've got folks around them that have the resources to put them in the places they need to be. It's the ones on the tail that end up having individual education plans if you don't know what an IEP is. But you cannot create something that will hit 100% of kids. You just can't. So the normative curve would tell you about 2/3 of them, this will work for. But the rest of them, we're going to need some variation for. And how do we do that with, an educational system where we're just putting them all in the same room anyway? All my teacher friends, I love you. I love all that you do for all of those kids. I teach, post-secondary. And so it's a much different ballgame once you get into graduate school. But still, it's, just to give you an idea of how that normative curve works, like it's only going to help about 2/3 of us. So there's great information out there when we're going through midlife, ladies. And I'm not telling you not to think about it and look at it. I'm asking you, instead of saying that they're right, your doctor's right, the science is right, what experts are telling you to do is right. Instead of looking outside, I want you to look inside. I want you to come back to your body and I want you to ask her, does this feel right for me? And case in point, my whole journey with eating and trying to lose weight and exercise and all of those things, I was doing very great healthy things that weren't helping me to lose weight because the estrogen was going down. It had nothing to do with whether I was actually following through on what they were telling me to do. I was following through. And when they would push that envelope and say, well, let's try this. How about let's try you around 120 grams of protein a day or 150 grams of protein a day. It didn't feel good at all to me. And I felt this Reddit post when I saw what she was saying, because I'm like, yep, been there. And I would tell you that, 4 out of 5 experts would have told me what I was doing was better for my body than what my body was telling me, which was, don't do this, Natalie. It's not good for us. I listened to my body because I've been practicing and working on these skills, and I'm doing fine. And actually, all of my tests are coming back better and better every time I go in. So clearly, listening to me and my intuition was the right thing to do. And I allow myself the grace that I might make a mistake from time to time. And when I get new information, I'll readjust. I'll readjust at that point. But I just want to, leave us all here with that information. The expert is not outside of us. The expert is in us. Always, always has been. And part of the midlife journey to a centered midlife is to learn to listen to her. That's what I want for us. So that's what I want you to take away from today's podcast. So just remember, there's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. And we are building your self-worth from the inside out to have a centered midlife.
Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these 2 crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone, text HOME, home, to 741-741 to the crisis text line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast. And I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.